A few months ago, a famed Trackmania mapper and project manager by the name of Key invited me to be a part of the 2026 Splobs Community Campaign, a 25 map campaign where each map is built by a different community member of the YouTuber and streamer Splobsstation. I was a big fan of the 2025 edition as a player, so of course I said yes, and I was tasked with building map 13 of the campaign. Now, if you know anything about my previous projects, I'm primarily an alt car mapper. So for this project, I was tasked with making the rally car map of the campaign. Because of the rare opportunity to be a part of a community project like this, I wanted to make a more unique map than what is usually seen with the rally car. When most people think of it, they think of the rally dirt blocks, for obvious reasons. But because they are made to drive on them, they aren't very unique in itself. So I was thinking, what if you don't drive on the block? You see, these blocks also have a special thing that no other blocks have that makes them really cool to use, and it's actually hidden in plain sight. I'm talking about the grass slopes on the outside of the blocks. What if the actual turns were blocked and you were forced to drive on the side of it? Although this has been used in the past on a fair share of maps, I have almost never seen this used with a rally car, and especially not for a campaign like this. But before I began creating the track, I needed at least one more element. As every creative knows, every element needs a contrasting element, and Trackmania mapping is no different. Fully one-style maps do have their own charm, but for the majority of maps, they are better off with an additional element or driving style to separate the elements and add a little bit of spice. One thing about the rally car that I forgot to mention is that it slides easily, like really easily. Unlike the stadium car, the rally car actually excels on the dirt and off-road environment, but struggles with the asphalt surface. So I came up with an idea. What if instead of being about drifts, the asphalt section was instead more about no sliding? No sliding in Trackmania is a technique where you steer very lightly to make big turns while also having traction with all four tires. No sliding with the rally car is quite different to the stadium car though, as one gives you less speed while the latter gives you more speed. Before in my map, the focus would be about gathering lots of speed into these asphalt sections and then executing precise no slides to snowball that speed. And so, my mapping began. Now, because I was thinking so much about the general theme of the map, when I began to make the start, I realized I neglected to think about what actual elements I would have in the map. I knew the general direction I wanted, but not any of the intricacies. So I did the classic maneuver. Throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks. I tried a few different variations of the start until I eventually ended up with this version. It has a small turn into a steep downhill followed by a jump onto the first rally block section. I decided I wanted to start it off simple with just a flat rally turn into a jump towards the next element, and from there slowly get more and more complicated. Because the whole start section was dirt, I decided that the next element to follow should therefore be asphalt. I didn't want these elements to be too long, so I just settled with the sharp turn to the right, followed by a ramp into the next dirt section. And one of the most iconic block combinations with this block is the bank turn blocks, so I added an outside one into an inside one, transitioning to the next element. I already had a few dirt sections and a small asphalt one, so I felt this was a good time to introduce the core motif of this map. Again, I wanted to slowly increase the difficulty over time, so I began to introduce the penalty grass element with a slow right-hander jumping over the block onto the text section that would follow it. This is where I would introduce the second motif of the track, the asphalt no slides. I decided on making it a steep downhill with a small little turn at the end. I tried a few different versions of this element, but this is the one I settled with. Now, this next section went through lots of different versions. This was the original one I was going to go with, but then I decided to completely change it up. So I experimented with this design, but in the end, the one I settled with was this one. And as crazy as it might seem to redo the same part of a track multiple times, it's actually a pretty common technique. For example, if someone's making a game for multiple years, by the time they finish it, their skill's way better than when they started, so they want to update the old parts to match their current skill. Trackmania mapping is very similar to that, but in a shorter time frame and more condensed. Anyways, after all that back and forth, I finally had a good route that I settled with and began creating the scenery for. Scenery in Trackmania is quite different than most games, with the fact that it's just so expansive. And that could be a good thing or bad thing depending on who you are. The good thing about the Trackmania community is that some people enjoy making routes, while others enjoy making scenery, and so those people can work together. But for this project, I decided I wanted to do it fully on my own, mainly because I've never done a collab before, but also because it gives you full control over making what you want to make. And for this track, the overall scenery idea I had was a sort of canyon vibe with tall structures and lots of different elevation mixed with a bright sunny paradise. So I started by raising the route up and adding these large blocky pillars around each of the core elements to give the impression that these structures were holding the route up above the ground. Speaking about the ground, I decided to make the entire thing water to give it that initial island sort of feel. Next, I added these curved blocks around each of the turns to make the environment feel like it's turning with the route. After I got these two base ideas spread across the map, I added some detail such as grass patches with palm trees to the supports, and some blue curved blocks to give the turns more color. But I still felt like it was lacking some scenery going above the track, which would give the map a lot more depth. So I made these curved blocks starting from each corner of the map and eventually converging at the center. I then connected these 4 pillars with a short wall going all the way around the map. And this wall design gave me an idea for another element to add to my track. And so, I created these cute little waterfall structures and placed them all across the map. To make these blend more into the original scenery, I also updated the original supports to give them the same waterfall feel, and connected all the supports to illustrate the canyon feel from the original idea. After all the different elements were added, it felt like the map was actually coming together quite well. I added some finishing touches like these blue poles and curved blocks, some important cut fixes, and a few other little surprises hidden around. Now that the map was basically finished, I was left with one of the most important parts of the map creation process, giving the track a name. I originally was thinking about just a simple name, like Paradise or Island or something similar. But then I realized it actually almost feels like the opposite, almost like a false paradise. So to go along with the theme, I originally thought of making it that exact name, but it felt too simple still. Then I thought about a cool adjective that fits the vibe, like the word euphoria. But there was a track of the day recently that had the exact name, so I ruled that option out. But I still liked that name, so I looked for some synonyms of that word until I finally stumbled upon the perfect name. Elation, a state of extreme happiness, often resulting from success, pride, or relief. I felt this name perfectly encapsulated my map, so I kept it, made the last few small changes, and submitted the final map file. With that all said and done, all I had to do was sit around and wait for the big moment, the release day. A few weeks later, the day finally rolled around for the campaign's long-awaited release.
But this is Psyber's map. A rally car, mate. Right, okay, I kind of understand a bit more now. This is a really cool map. Hold on. It'll take me a second to get a decent time on. Oh! This is very nice. This is nice. I feel like I can build up some serious speed here as well. Wait, go right at the start. Shit. Oh, okay, that's cool. Hold on. That's very cool. Nice. Wow, that's surprisingly uniform across the whole. It's almost like its own fucking font. That looks very cool, bro. That was a heart there as well. Very sick. Oh, look at the things across the top. That's cool. There's even stuck a fucking podium there. Very cool, bro.
And just like that, the discovery of my map was finished. The multiple months of planning, brainstorming, and executing, and the big moment felt like it passed in the blink of an eye. After the discovery finished, many of the players shared their thoughts of the map and expressed their enjoyment with playing it. And that's the most important part for me at the end of the day. You may be wondering, was this the reaction you were expecting? And honestly, I'm not sure. I was just so caught up in the mapping process that I wasn't planning too far ahead. Like for example, I didn't even think about making this video until a few days before the release. But the thing that truly drove me to stay with the mapping process was the collective teamwork of every mapper that was a part of this project. The goal of a dedicated community showing their appreciation for a streamer in this way is something to aspire to. And it's something I will look back on fondly in the future as an amazing memory. I hope you learned something new today, and I'll see you next time.